Hey everyone, thanks for tuning into the Nikhil Hogan Show. I'm writing a book called Why Children Quit Music, which talks about the problems of music education, how we can fix it, and get our kids excited about music again. You won't want to miss it. You can sign up for updates about the book on my email list at nikhilhogan.com. Also, you can become a supporting listener by giving a monthly donation on Patreon, which will get free goodies, music tutorials, and access to our private Facebook group. Thanks again, and now, time for the show. On today's show, I talked to Grammy award-winning singer, arranger, composer, and producer Mark Kibble of the famed multi-Grammy winning American a cappella vocal group Take Six. We talk about his musical development from young, his approach to arrangement, harmony, working with Ray Charles, Quincy Jones, Stevie Wonder, and so much more. Stay tuned, you're listening to The Nikhil Hogan Show. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Nikhil Hogan Show, the premier music interview show in the world. And I'm so excited to announce my guest today, multi-Grammy award-winning musician, arranger, and singer Mark Kibble, known for his work with the celebrated a cappella group Take Six. With a career spanning over 30 years, 16 albums, 10 Grammy Awards, 10 Gospel Music Association Dove Awards, 3 gold albums, Take Six is the most awarded a cappella group in history. Over the years, the group has performed with some of the most famous musicians in the world, such as Ella Fitzgerald, Stevie Wonder, Ray Charles, Jarreau, Don Henley, James Taylor, and many, many more. Their most recent releases include 2016's Believe and 2018's Iconic. Mark, it's such a great honor to have you on the show for the first time.
Well, I'm honored to be here.
Mark, I want to go right back to your childhood because it's always interesting to find out how a great musician develops. I was listening to an interview and you mentioned at the age of 6, actually younger, when you were in car rides going to Buffalo, New York, your family, is it true that you guys would sing in harmony and you were super young and you're singing with your sister and your mom, 4-part harmony?
That's correct. You do your research well. I'm very impressed.
Now, wait a second. What songs were they?
Oh, they were just, a lot of them were like Christian folk songs, and some of them were early gospel quartet songs. And, they were, fairly easy songs to do. And, my family always did harmony from the very beginning. So I guess that was just kind of the thing.
And how big's your family?
I have one sister and one brother. And, of course, my brother, Joey, sings in the group. And he's 7 years younger than I am. So he wasn't born. He wasn't born at the time that this was going on. That's why it was just my sister and my parents.
Now, was your mom a trained musician or your dad?
Yes, in fact, both of them were. My mom was a church organist and pianist, and my dad led choral groups, choirs, and what have you. So, they both were musical.
You mentioned there was like a really amazing church in Buffalo that was just superbly musical, incredible choirs, incredible musicians. Could you talk about that church?
It literally blew my mind when we went there, because I guess the other churches were, on the conservative side compared to what we encountered in Buffalo, and my dad went there to pastor. You would note that Claude McKnight and his family is a very musical family. Obviously, you got Brian McKnight coming out of there, and even I don't know if you know about Chris Willis, but he's an outstanding singer that's been in London. Well, the Willis clan and the McKnights and all of them and so many other families, they all were just musically astute. They were just doing everything from more conservative choral choirs to gospel choirs to small groups to trios, quartets, and everything was going on, and great soloists to boot. So, all of that was happening, and it just, for me, somebody that's musically inclined to go to a church like that, it was just like the world just opened up all of a sudden. And I found myself at that point, I was literally 6 years old, And I met a family of singers. You know, the kids they're my age and a little younger. I sang with my first quartet outside of my family I was probably 6 or 7 years old.
Oh my goodness!
When that happened, yeah, and it was because obviously I'd sung harmony with my family all along, and then here's another family that does the same thing. So it was just an easy fit. It just happened. So and there you start my career of singing in groups.
Now, Mark, do you have perfect pitch?
I do not. I have very good relative pitch.
When you were learning all these parts, did your parents ever ask you to practice, or was it all just you just said no, nobody needed to tell you, you were just playing for fun?
For the most part, playing was for fun. I would follow my mom to church when she would go to practice on the organ, and I'd follow her and play the organ right behind her, just practicing little things. All of that initially was just me, playing by ear, playing what I heard. And I think I was probably 7 or 8 years old, and she decided to send me to get piano lessons. So I did take piano lessons for just 2 years. After 2 years, I began to hear what was going on before I would read it, and I would play by ear even what was on the page. So my teacher caught on to that, and she was like, "Well, you're not doing this right," and I quit.
Just before we move on, I want to mention an interesting thing you said in another interview. You said, "Before I got to Buffalo, Edwin Hawkins had just come out with Oh Happy Day. I played it all the time, right. And that ended up the first song that I played on the piano before I ever got to Buffalo." That's
right. That's exactly what happened. I was playing that and that was in Boston. We were living in Boston at the time. And my dad was kind of a renegade pastor, and he pulled that gospel, because that gospel was way too much for most conservative churches at the time, but he was going to play that. And he played that, and in my house, I easily picked it up. And it became the start to my introduction to gospel.
Now, Mark, when you say, just for my listeners, when you say conservative, are you talking about classical choirs and that kind of thing?
Yeah. Choirs that sing more anthem and classical type of music, okay, as opposed to gospel. Obviously there's a big difference there.
Now, you mentioned that piano teacher that you had, but you said in an interview, you said there was a teacher that I had, Alan Johnson. I would call him my mentor for music, because between him and his wife Shirley, they taught me so much about singing, about music, and how to breathe. I have to give him a lot of credit for stuff like that. When were those lessons happening?
That happened. Those are the very lessons that I just spoke about in Buffalo.
Okay.
Alan Johnston.
Johnston.
With a T. Yeah. And he was also the principal of the school and my teacher through, I think he taught me in 7th and 8th grade. And what's interesting about that is I moved from Buffalo to Nashville in 76, 77, and Alan Johnston moved there too. So he was my teacher in Buffalo in 7th grade and my teacher in Nashville in 8th grade. And yes, he is very much responsible for, showing me techniques to breathe and sing, even with ear training. And his wife Shirley taught me piano for those 2 years. So yeah, if there's anybody that I could have to credit for really mentoring me, it's him. And he passed away, but I owe so much to him.
I would say, and I think you would say this yourself too, that you are very self-directed. So you pick things up on your own and you learn on your own. Would it be fair to say that you took a lot of stuff from records and your peers as well when you were growing up?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I listened to quite a bit of music, and what always resonated with me was anything that was harmonically rich. And it started with my mom listening to the radio, listening to easy listening music, where it was a very orchestrated and, harmonically rich. And I gravitated to that. And then I gravitated to, of course, quartet music. and anything that had musical spice to it at the time. So it was more of that, and then later on, like big band music and what have you, as opposed to, say, what was going on in the pop and R&B world. I would listen a little bit to that, but for the most part, anything that was harmonically rich would take my attention immediately. So there was maybe a little bit of the R&B kind of thing going on, but not much, not as much as it was the rich stuff and the gospel stuff.
You did say in your teenage years you listened a lot to Earth, Wind & Fire and Stevie Wonder. Was that later?
Yeah, that was later. That was absolutely later. And of course, Earth, Wind & Fire, you have to know they were so far ahead of their time with what they were doing. They're still amazing and still to be studied to this day for the innovative stuff they were bringing to the table. So I literally heard Can't Hide Love on the radio back in when I was in Buffalo, my later years in Buffalo, and the harmonic changes that were going through there grabbed my attention so hard. I would literally sit by the radio, changing stations to try to catch it and listen to it again.
Now, how would you work out something like that? I mean, very difficult music. How would you buy the record and slow it down?
Back then, no. I would listen to it and just try to absorb it and remember it. And that was before I really started picking things out. I never went to the piano and tried to pick out Can't Hide Love because, I didn't have the album and, I just absorbed it in my soul. So I don't know. It out somewhere else later, but it wasn't until probably mid-high school years that I started to go to the piano and pick stuff out, and it was at that time that I started listening to Singers Unlimited and Gene Perling and all of his work, and of course that was like euphoria to me.
Yeah, let's talk about that a little bit because I think I'm really fascinated by what you listen to. So Gene Perling of the High-Lows, could you talk about the albums that influenced you when listening to him?
Oh, my goodness. It started from, I was introduced to the first one when the first one came out, the one that had Fool on the Hill. I think it was my uncle in Washington, D.C. first played that for me, and I lost my mind when I heard that one. I mean, it literally changed my life, because that literally set the course for what I would be doing for the rest of my life.
Did you own a record player, and or did you listen to the radio and try to grab it on the station?
Oh, those I listened to the records. I actually got the records and listened to them, and that was, I was in high school at the time. So that started to happen, and so I could play it on my parents' record player. And then when I got to high school, I had record players there too. So I was always able to really, and then you could, that's when we record everything on cassette. You could play it on cassette, and
Is this around the same time, Mark, that you were at Oakwood Academy and you met Mervyn Warren?
That's correct. You are so dead on. I'm so impressed.
Now, it's so interesting. You said that you guys were learning and just absorbing. What was a typical day of music for you guys?
Oh, my goodness. Well, when I got to high school, I came to Oakwood Academy my sophomore year and met up with Mervyn then. And Mervyn had a group. It was called the Symbolic Sounds. And I joined that group with him. He was the director of that group, and he was writing music for the group. They were doing stuff that was kind of harmonically challenging, but in the scheme of learning, there was pretty early on, so there wasn't a lot of really deep stuff that we were doing. But working with him, even while he was writing, we would arrange things together. And at the same time, we were listening to Singers Unlimited and listening to, a lot of old quartet or gospel music, because we were going to integrate that into what we were doing musically. And at the same time, I started a guys group back in high school. It was, of course, short-lived, but even then we were taking the old quartet music, and I think we started doing "Oh Mary, Don't You Weep" back then, and doing arrangements for it all the way back early in high school. And it came out, we just, kind of kept the song when the group got started and went back to it to say, oh, that's a great song.
Mark, do you remember the very first time you started arranging things with purpose?
Oh, yeah. That happened before I actually went to Huntsville, Alabama to Oakwood Academy. I think I did one of my first arrangements based on, another arrangement that I'd heard I was in 8th grade. And even before that, I am credited with writing the school song for the school that I attended in Buffalo, New York. That happened, obviously, when I was in 6th or 7th grade.
It's kind of interesting. You're this incredible musician now after this long career, but isn't it true when you were in Oakwood University, music was just a hobby? You actually majored in business and computer programming.
Yeah, it was a very interesting thing that was going on then. I should have majored in music, no question about it. But I was discouraged when I got there because I couldn't be creative. They kind of discouraged creativity when I was there. They, of course, now it's totally different because, they've learned from our mistakes. But literally, the group that I had at that time, I was in the Oakwood College Aeolians, which, if you look up the Aeolians now, they are winning everything. They're like the best group on the planet, best choir on the planet. Well, back then they had a reputation too, of course, and I was in that under the direction of Alma Blackman. But Alma Blackman said, "You can't be in any groups more than 4." Well, my group was 6. So I literally had to decide, okay, it's you or me. And I decided I'm going to keep my group. So I was, I couldn't be in that. And she, it was that kind of mentality that also discouraged me from just, majoring in music, which,
Very
I shouldn't have let
bureaucratic.
that happen. But yeah, it really was. And so, I decided to just study what would make sense for me for my entire life, which, I thought was probably business at the time.
Let me ask you this question. You said Mervyn and I studied harmony early on. We came up with our own rules about how to do harmony, what sounds good, what doesn't. Now, what did you mean by that? Like, how wild were you guys going with the harmony?
Oh, my goodness. Well, of course, we were studying all of Gene Perling's works, a little bit just, not transcribing it, but, playing it out. And figuring out which vocal, in doing which vocal voicings actually work better than others. For instance, you might think that doubling a particular part of the melody, doing an octave of it, well, you actually waste a voice when you octave the melody on top, when you could actually do something else in the bottom. And if there's if the melody is running throughout, you can harmonize it above or below. And there's strengths and weaknesses to doing that. And there were all kinds of different rules that we came up with that just made better sense. Whether you use an open voicing or a closed voicing, and the strengths and weaknesses of each one. What are you trying to do to paint the picture? Like a minor second that, it will work fine if it is close together. But if it is like an octave apart, it doesn't work so well. So, those are the kinds of things that we look out for and made our own specific rules for.
Take 6, you guys have had, what a career, and you've worked with so many amazing people. Let me just ask you about a couple of them. Now, you've said that working with Ray Charles was a very special experience for you. You said you got to work with him in his studio and see him do it. He didn't have a second engineer. He did everything by himself. And you were able to sit down and chat with the guy and connect with him and have really meaningful conversations. What kind of conversations? And could you share any interesting things he said to you? And what did he think about your music? And I'd love to know your relationship with him.
Oh, it was very good. It was, if you've probably seen the movie Ray, it literally depicted why he was the kind of person that did everything himself. He was, he loved to be in control of everything that happened, and how he sounds and how he's recorded. And, I went to his studio and where he had everything. All of his offices were there. And of course, all the keyboards were there. He had a room full of keyboards and then a control room. And, like I said, he pretty much did everything himself, walked me around, and the conversations were good. He obviously had enough respect for me to actually bring me in there and let me hear, some of whatever he was doing. And to say, yeah, I'll work with you. He literally said, okay, you write me the song. And let me tell you this. We originally suggested the song Amazing Grace. Sing Amazing Grace with us. And he literally said, man, I can't sing that song because lyrically that's not what I'm about. So, you all pick another one. You can write something for me or do something else, but I can't do that.
What did he mean by that? Musically or just the lyrics, or what did he mean?
It was about the lyrics. It was about the lyrics because he really had a problem with religion and, with his whole experience, with, whatever that meant, it was something that he just couldn't do. And so he told me that, and I said, okay, well, I'll write a song for you. And we'll see if you like it. If you like it, you can sing it. We wrote a song. Joey and I wrote one together called My Friend, where the lyrics literally talking about no matter where you are or what you've done, I accept you as you are. You are my friend. I'm looking out for you, and he loved it. And that's the one that we actually did with him. But it was, that kind of conversation, letting me know what his life was like and, the experience and his struggles. He was very candid about all of that stuff with me.
Was he interested in the music harmonically and kind of like, what are you doing over there with that? Like, how are you putting those chords together? Did you chat about music with him?
He never questioned any of that because he knew all of that. If you remember, he had big bands behind him all the time. So, it was a common language. We were just doing the big band type voicings and harmonies. And so then there was never a question of how you do what you do. He was like, I'm just glad you do what you do. And I love it. And let's do it together.
Let's jump to Quincy Jones now. You've worked with him. And
okay.
What was he like in the studio? And what did he think of you guys? And describe your relationship with him.
Well, I'll tell you this. The awesomeness of Quincy is that he makes you feel like family. He made us feel immediately like family. In fact, I called him Pops one time, and he said, you know what, that's going to be your nickname. So he called me Pops. So to this day, he still calls me that. But he made us feel so close. And the reason why was because he wanted us to feel comfortable doing what we do. I'm calling you in to be on my project so that you can be at your best doing what you do. I want your best. So you comfortably bring what you bring. And he asked us to arrange vocal parts on the songs that we did. I think the first thing he asked us to do was the song Say Tombro. And he brought me to his house, and we, talked about the arrangement, and I started to work on it. And literally, I went into the studio at one point, and there was a part that was a little too complex. And he said, I know I want you to be free to do what you do, but we need to do something different here. And, I was perplexed at the time, but immediately went to work to make sure that it was what he wanted to do. But the whole thing was he just made us feel so comfortable. You're right at home because he wants to bring out the best in you. And he is a master at bringing the best out of whoever is around and pulling the best and putting it all in the package so everybody can enjoy it.
I kind of actually remembered a question I wanted to ask you about Ray Charles and lyrics. Now, you're such a master of harmony. When it comes to lyrics, do you have that same fascination with wordplay and fitting that with melody? Well, how does lyrics come into your composition as well?
I do. I write, and I learned my writing skills from working with a natural writer, Mervyn Warren. He's a natural writer. I'm not a natural writer. I can do it. I'm gifted enough to be able to come up with catchy lines and what have you. And I think we studied people like Michael Franks, who, lyrically, he is just, he is a beast. And so you kind of get the idea of what you can do, and you kind of, putting it all together. I actually learned that from Mervyn. So before that, I can't say that in fact, even to this day, I'm not a natural writer, because natural writers will write every single day. They will, I write on demand. If somebody says, write a song, yeah, I can write a song. I can, come up with something and it'll be pretty good. Might not be the best in the world, but it'll be pretty good. But natural writers, they do it every single day because they can't help themselves.
Here's a funny question for you. Do you work better in the morning or in the evening? Are you a morning person or a night owl?
That's a good question, because I've done both. A lot of times, my days have to start at like 9 or 10 o'clock in the morning, because you're working with specific studio hours, so I can do that. And then there are times when you get into the flow, and I will work all night, But I think what I do need, whenever that is just time to be in a zone. Once I'm in it, I can get back to it very easily, but it always takes a minute to get into it. So starting early in the day is always a little better, because, you can kind of force yourself to say, okay, you have this amount of time, you're going to get this done, let's do it. And, push everything aside and you're in it.
Somebody asked you how you learned arranging, and did you learn it from a book or a teacher? You said, not really, but I did study by listening. I just listen to everything I can, and that's how I do it. You just have to listen and to get all your ideas from that. So how much listening have you done? It must be staggering how much the records and all the music you've listened to. How much would you say you've listened to in your life?
Oh, my goodness. And that's all the time. That's all the time. And I, it's like, picture yourself in a world where, or in an area where everybody around you is speaking a different language. And you only speak maybe one or two languages. So you don't understand, what everybody else is saying. But all of a sudden, out of that myriad of people talking and people, doing whatever they do, you hear something and it resonates with you. You understand the language, so you gravitate to that. Well, that's the way that it is with me in music. Certain things, the language, the harmonic language, the melodic language is there, and I gravitate to it. So I'm always listening. In fact, I have to tell you, one of the latest things that I'm listening to right now, that has absolutely taken my attention, is a group called Moonchild. I think they're a trio out of L.A. So I know that they're up and coming. They're new. They've been around. I know they put out a project in 2012, and they just put out one last year. And the one they put out last year, it's called Voyager. Well, they got my attention. They got my attention because, it might not be like, the baddest super stuff that you hear, but it's specific to me because it caught my attention, and what they are doing, that they're instrumentalists and with a female vocalist. And, oh my God,
I'm definitely going to check that out.
Stuff like that. It's stuff like that it hits me, and I absorb it, and it's gonna, whatever you listen to and you absorb, it's gonna come out somewhere. So trust me, I'll have them to thank for something that I'm doing in the future.
Now, jazz is something that features a lot. I mean, it's a huge part of your core, and you're so masterful at weaving it in and weaving in all the gospel and R&B and all the different elements. For jazz, are there any particular sounds or artists that really inspired you and influenced you, specifically within the jazz world?
Oh, yeah. I have to start with, the big bands like Count Basie. Woody Herman, all those, the big band stuff. That was the real deal stuff right there. And, I listened to it. I loved it. It just, I gravitated to it. And from there, I started listening to, Ella Fitzgerald and, all the crazy stuff that she was doing, Sarah Vaughan. And from there, the stuff that Quincy Jones was doing, he, kind of took the big band and then brought in the pop flavor to it and the soul flavor to it. And, any stuff like that hit me real hard. It was later on that I was introduced to people like Miles Davis. And what Miles did with Marcus Miller produced Tutu. And, it impressed me so much that when Marcus Miller came up to be a producer for us, we gravitated to him right away. Because, if there's anybody that knows what the old stuff was as well as the new stuff, because he was in it and did it, it was Marcus Miller. So Marcus Miller's there.
You brought up Ella Fitzgerald, and that's somebody you actually did work with. What was that experience like?
Oh, that was, that was what you call a remote experience, because we weren't in the studio at the same time.
Oh,
we were
I see.
honored to be on the same project, but that was with Quincy, and, Quincy would bring people in and, add them to the flavor, add them to the mix. But I actually never saw her do what she did. I wish that I had him, but, I was just honored to be on the same project.
Now, a major person who was very important to Take Six was Al Jarreau, who passed away.
Yes. He was on my list of people to mention, too.
You said he was the first person to take Six on the road in 1989, and you guys cut your teeth with him, and he did a lot for the band. And, there's that recording that you guys did, 7 Steps. He basically scattered a solo. It was remarkable.
Yeah. Al Jarreau, we owe so much to him. And, he was also a friend of our family. So, when I would talk to him, he would talk, I know your dad. He was my counselor when I was in at junior camp. So we would always go way back, and he always mentioned my dad. Because they were friends. So, but he taught us, how to work, how to be positive out on the road when the work is so hard. He was always the most friendly, open, welcoming person, and make it fun. If there's anybody that taught us that, it was for him on that first tour. Just always laughing, always making us feel comfortable, because that's the experience. And you have that to fall back on. When you bring that, then that's what makes people say, okay, I want them again. I want you to come back out again. And so he taught us that. He also taught us there's something that we later appreciate in our older age. He would rest most of the day. He'd be in the mornings, or we're out playing basketball, we're out, losing our minds, expending all our energy. He is asleep. But he would do that so that he could have the energy that he needed to do a full show every night. And it made perfect sense. And again, when we worked together in the studio, he was amazing. He's always amazing.
Let's use an example. So The Standard, that really incredible album you guys did, which had all those jazz songs, he sang 7 Steps to Heaven. And you mentioned in an interview it was very difficult to arrange something to make it fit and to work. And was that a difficult track in the sense that to make it effective and to make it work, you had to really think of all the parts and to make sure it all gelled well?
Oh yeah, that was a bit of a challenge, just because it's obviously not a vocal piece, completely instrumental, and he wasn't thinking about voices when he was playing his trumpet solo. He was just playing his trumpet solo, and it was just absolutely amazing. And then we almost did the sax solo that went along with it, but there was enough time. So and doing it was I had to transcribe that solo, and the way that I work, I had to use the slow downer to make that happen, because that's what I'm saying. He was going at, the song is lightning speed anyway.
Yeah.
But I did what I had to do the actual trumpet solo. And then you have to make sure that whatever we're doing harmonically behind it vocally, it will work. And that has to be a little bit more specific than what the band and what the keyboardist can play. You can get away with so much more on a keyboard than you can vocally. So we had to be very specific, and but that's what I do. So even though it might have been a little difficult, it was a pleasure to do. It was something that was actually fun.
Mark, who are your favorite jazz instrumentalists? And they could be any from history or even current. Who are your personal favorites?
Top of my list is Kirk Whalum. I love the way that he plays his sax because he does it making it a conversation. You literally feel like you're listening to people talk when he's doing his sax solo. I like Gerald Albright. I like Marcus Miller. The way that he does the same thing with the bass line. What he does with the bass is just absolutely amazing. I've always been a George Benson fan, and then Nat King Cole.
Yeah.
And the way that he not only sang but he played.
Oh,
I love the way that he played. Oscar Peterson. Oscar Peterson.
Now, let me ask you, Mark, your main instrument other than voice, is it piano? Do you play other instruments as well? Yes.
Piano is it.
Okay.
I would only play anything else. And I've picked up a bunch of instruments, but, like I said, I would never even attempt to bring anything else to life. But yeah, piano is what I use.
What was it like working with Stevie Wonder? You must have been asked this a lot, but...
Oh, yeah. That's my other big brother.
You grew up listening to him, and what was it like to meet him and to play with him?
Again, that is literally my big brother. I talked to him 2 days ago. just having a daily conversation. He gave me the opportunity to write songs with him. He sent me the music and the hook to the song "Why I Feel This Way" that we did on Join the Band, and allowed me to write all the lyrics to it. So, he has given me so many life lessons. He is, he talks about everything. If you ever listen to Stevie Wonder, he has great insight on so many different subjects. Well, I got all of that firsthand, literally, counseling me in my personal life. So it's just, he's an amazing, amazing friend. And so, we've been in the studio with him. And again, he's very specific with his ideas. He knows what he wants. So he'll, if not necessarily carte blanche with him, he knows what he wants. Make sure that, you give him what he wants, and then you can have the freedom to do a little bit of what you want. So, when we did the song on the Soulful Messiah, "Oh Thou That Tellest," I was literally behind the board when he was doing his solo. We're producing Stevie. How do you produce Stevie Wonder? How do you produce Stevie Wonder? Well, that was my first experience producing somebody on that caliber. And you do something, you say, "Oh, yeah, that sounds good." And then you sweat some bullets and say, "Nah, you can do that a little better." That was hard, because he's Stevie Wonder.
Mark, for someone as advanced as you are in harmony, are you still learning? What things are you studying? Are there things that you are interested in exploring within music? What things are you kind of curious about?
You're not going to believe this. Well, maybe you will. I don't know. But let me preface this by saying, Quincy always said, one of the first things he said to us was, never stop learning. Never stop. You will always be learning. When you stop learning, that's when you die. That's when your career will be dead. Everything will be dead when you stop. So we've kept that in mind, and we always absorb learning new things, learning new ways of doing things. That's why I'm listening to that, the group Moonchild now, because there's something else that I can learn from them. I'm picking it up. But what I really want to learn that I did not learn is music theory.
You're kidding.
I'm not kidding you. I learned a little bit, but not enough to, say, write a score. I don't write my stuff out. And, I sequence forever, and, I use, Logic, Pro Logic for days. And I can pretty much do everything that I need to do without actually having to read anything. I can read to sing, but, that's not a natural thing for me. And it could be, all I have to do is take the time to actually do it and practice, But that's something that I want to do.
How are you going about doing that? What's your way of learning that?
Well, I have an app on my phone that I'm studying. music theory app. And, that's helped me a lot. So I know, probably maybe 50, 60% of the terminology. But it's going to take me actually getting with somebody to make sure that I'm doing it right, And I've always, you find a lot of musicians can avoid having, to read or use charts for their entire career. I'm one of them. But, that's not something that I want to go out with. I want to make sure that I actually do that sometimes, because I know the possibilities are endless once I actually learn the language enough to, masterfully do an entire chart.
Mark, do you listen to classical music for harmony inspiration in any way?
Not really. I have listened to it, and I absorb some of it, every once in a while. There's even...
or like film music too.
Yeah, when it's playing in the background, I do take note of it. In fact, if there's any music playing, it's hard for me to concentrate on anything else that's going on because I'm always focusing on that. It's just, that's the natural phenomenon. I can't, if it's playing, I'm paying attention to it. So yeah, with classical music, I've listened to it over the years, but I don't gravitate to it. I've used the technique in songs. I think I did an arrangement of the choral. Now I can't even think of the name of it. Hallelujah, Randall Thompson. But he actually, obviously came from a kind of a classical point when he did the first one. So I had to take from that to arrange it for 6 male voices. And you'll note, I have to say, I didn't actually do that for take 6. I did it for another group, and they couldn't do it, so we did it. So that's how we ended up doing that. But yeah. So some of those classical techniques, I have absorbed and used from time to time, but it's not something I go to naturally.
So I want to ask you about your most recent album, Iconic, which you guys released last year. And yes, you guys are just awesome, just great, high-quality album, consistently
so much.
At the highest level. Can you talk about your approach to this album and what concept you had in your mind as you guys were producing it and making it?
Okay, well, obviously the concept for this was to take... we literally went through a list of the songs that have impressed us throughout our entire lives. The ones that have lasted over years, and compiling that list, we just wanted to do our version of whatever that was. And the list we went from a list of probably, maybe 200 songs, and just whittled it down and voted. And whatever ones got the most votes was the ones that actually made the project. Not all of the songs that we picked got like 6 votes, but they had to at least get 4, and then by way of saying, okay, we just have to do this for whatever particular reason. Those are the ones that actually made the project, and once we did it, of course, you want to do it in such a way that, number one, it's recognizable. We don't want to do an arrangement that just throws you way off what the song was and you miss the whole point of the song. Because the real reason why these songs are great are because of the melody in them and, you know, the musicality of whatever it is in the first place. So you don't want to lose that. So that's the way that we approach this.
There's some great songs on this. I mean, let's take a couple of the tracks, like Back in Love Again, title track. Can you talk about the recording of that one?
Oh, yeah. Well, you know, that was one of the ones that Christian Dentley actually did the arrangement for that. We said, you know, because we were so busy doing some of the other things that we said, okay, Christian, because he's quite an outstanding musician and producer himself, and said, okay, this is your baby. We need you to go and do this. For time's sake, we got to get this done. And he put his foot all up in that one. It was really, we were so impressed. And, you know, we say, you know, the way that he did it, it also translates well live. So we had a ball. We literally got into the studio and had a ball. That was one of the songs where we were actually all in the studio at the same time. We did not do all those songs that way. Sometimes, you know, with modern technology, we can do things remotely where, you know, I'll do an entire demo and just send it out and everybody just put your stuff on. But that one, we were there, and we had a blast. It was so much fun to do.
Can't Stop the Feeling. That's people know that with Justin Timberlake from the movie Trolls.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, how did you guys come to? That's got some great chords in it. So, how did you guys come to choose that song? And what was your approach to redoing that tune?
You know, we figured, well, the reason why we thought of it was because it was one that was actually more current. It hadn't been around forever. And we wanted to do something that was kind of poppy and happy, had a great feeling to it, and made us feel good to do it. That was, the criteria that said, let everybody say, okay, yeah, that's a good song to do. Once we did it, it was a matter of, I did the arrangement for that. And that was one of the ones that we kind of did remotely, where I sang everything down and then sent it around. But for me, it was just a matter of capturing the essence of it, capturing the happiness in it, capturing the feeling that, you want to get up and dance. You want to feel that. So, it was not a hard song to do. It was just, let's just make it what it's supposed to be and make it a cappella at the same time. How
is the Mark Kibble, the arranger now, different from the Mark Kibble, the arranger, maybe 10, 20 years ago?
You ask great questions. I love this. Let me tell you what. There is a difference. Early on, I was out to prove a point. Do the most outlandish, crazy stuff that you could do. And, the ideas would flow and I would just let them flow.
Do you have an example for a song where you're really going nuts? Or an album?
Yeah, it was, I want to say So Cool. So Cool. There's some, and even before that on So Much to Say.
Yeah.
I think we did, one of the last ones was Where Do the Children Play? Yeah, I lost my mind on that one. So much for that.
Well, everyone's going to be checking out that track again, and we say, let's see what Mark was all about.
Yeah. I mean, somebody told me after it was all said and done, where's the hook? I said, you're right. It's too late. We missed the hook. Yeah, it was, some of that stuff, you throw in so much that, it sounds great, but it's just, nothing to grab onto. Too much to grab onto that you don't grab onto anything at all. So my thing with the way that I do things now, I try to let an idea breathe. Let it breathe, let it be appreciated. I still do some crazy stuff every now and again, because I'm like, I got to get your attention and say, okay, what did they just do? I want that to happen. But I don't want you to lose you and doing all kinds of crazy stuff like that. I want you to be able to come back to the song and say, I just like the song. I just want to hear it. And I'm singing along with it. I want to feel like I'm a part of it. That's the idea, and that's what I want to go with.
You've played, Stevie Wonder, Quincy Jones. That's as good as it gets. But is there anybody in history that you would have loved to work with in the studio?
I think I would have loved to work with Joe Williams. Missed that opportunity because the richness of his voice, I think we would have had so much fun with. I think that I would like to work with. I would have liked to work with Aretha. We didn't get that opportunity.
What a talent!
But with that, yeah. So those are the ones that I regret. But now that you see what happens if you wait, there's some awesome artists out there right now that I would love to work with too. So, some of the newer artists that are coming up right now, if they have an interest in working with some of the old guys like us, then I'll be real cool, real happy about that,
Well, the great Mark Kibble, 10-time Grammy winner with Take 6, really one of the greatest bands of all time. What a true honor to be able to talk to Mark today. Mark, would you like to, are there any projects in 2019 you'd like to tell my audience about? Other than, of course, the album 2018's Iconic, which you should definitely go and buy. What projects do you have lined up for 2019?
Well, I'm already working with Eliane Elias, a Brazilian jazz pianist and vocalist. I've been on 3 of her projects already. I'm doing some more work with her. That's just a relationship that I love because I love Brazilian stuff, and she's like, some of the best music that will ever come out of Brazil. I know that I'm doing something with her right now. There's possibly a production that will happen with one of the guys from Straight No Chaser, Jerome Collins. And you can expect more from Take 6. We're gonna do what might be called Iconic 2, where you got
yeah, it's been a great response,
like the
and I think we would definitely love to see another follow up to that album. Mark, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me and my audience, and we're really honored. I hope maybe when that next project comes out, you'll come back and talk to us. I hope you had a great time on the show.
Oh, I did. And, wish me luck on the Grammy because I'm up for 2 this year.
All right. Yeah, good luck. Thank you so much, Mark, and have a great day.
All right, you too.
Thanks so much for listening to my interview with the great Mark Kibble. What an honor to talk to such a musical great. I really hope you had a fun time listening as well. Just want to mention my upcoming book, Why Children Quit Music, which is coming out later this year. And don't forget to sign up for our email list on nikhilhogan.com for updates on the book. Consider also becoming a patron of the show on Patreon to earn free goodies and access to our private Facebook group. Thanks again for listening, and I'll see you at the next show.